right, good stuff. Turned on. That it? There we go. It's not the middle. It's all the way over. Just so you know, it's not in the middle. It's all the way over. We're going to be in Luke chapter 7 when we get to here in a few minutes. I still can't get used to seeing Mally DeRosso up there. Yeah, I think you need to hyphen your name. What do they call it? Mally DeRosso Wilson or Mally? No? Okay. I tried, Barry. I tried to let her keep that Wilson name, but she turned it down. She'd rather be a DeRosso. Sorry, Cody. I don't know about you guys. I'm looking forward to a good week. I have family coming in town. Son's coming from town from Texas. It's going to be the first time we have Thanksgiving at our house in a long time. So I'm looking forward to it. My daughter's coming up from college. My other son, he'll be there. We might have a couple other people there. I don't know. My daughter's bringing one of her friends from college because she lives in California. She can't, and her friend can't go all the way back to California for Thanksgiving. Bob will be there, and we'll be somewhere else. Oh, but yeah, I'm looking forward to a good week. But tonight we're just going to go over God's command is to love everyone. And sometimes that's a hard thing to deal with, to love everyone, to show everybody that we care, to show everybody some compassion. But all throughout the Bible, we're told to love and care for people, aren't we? We're told to love and to care for each and every person out there in the world. But you know what? Sometimes we don't, and I'm just as guilty as the next person is. It's hard to love some people. But no matter who they are, we're supposed to love and care for them. Here in Luke chapter 7, leading up to this chapter, a few things have happened. Christ has recently been preaching on Peter's ship to hundreds, if not thousands of people. He's walked down the Sea of Galilee, picked out some of his disciples. He's performed a lot of his miracles already. And he's walking up into the town of Capernaum. And as he's walking in there, something happens. And here in Capernaum, it's kind of a neat town. It's just a neat town. I mean, that's where some of the disciples lived. Christ lived. He made his home there for a while. Just a lot of things in Capernaum that are kind of neat. That's why a lot of people live there. That's why disciples live there, because it's a fishing town. It's close to the Sea of Galilee. And it's just a neat town. But Christ he's walking up into this Capernaum. And in Luke chapter 7, verse 1, look what happens. Luke chapter 7, verse 1 says this. It says, "Now when he had ended all his sayings in the audience of the people, he entered Capernaum. And a certain centurion's servant who was dear unto him was sick and ready to die. And when he heard of Jesus, he sent unto him the elders of the Jews, beseeching him that he would come and heal his servant." Now, so those of you who might not be real familiar with what a centurion is a commander of the army. And he's over a whole bunch of men. And the easy way to figure that out is he's a centurion. If you think about that name, how many years are in a century? There's 100 years in a century. So the centurion commander he commands 100 men in the army. So he's a pretty high up guy commanding 100 men. But here we have a commander in the military, a commander in the army, and he has a problem. He's got a servant that's about to die. He has a servant that's sick. He's laying there in pain, and he's about to die. And he's concerned about this, and his centurion, he's heartbroken about this. He's concerned about it. And to think about this, look who he's talking about here. He's not talking about one of the guys in his army that's one of his right-hand men. He's not talking about his wife. He's not talking about one of his parents. He's not talking about one of his children. He's not talking about any of his friends. We have a centurion that's concerned about a servant. Now, I've read this passage several times through the years, through Bible study or Sunday school or through preaching or whatever. When I read that passage this week, I'd never read it before. I mean, it never stuck out at me this week like it has in the past. But I'm amazed that this man cares so much for one of his servants. It's a servant. I mean, to us, it's nobody special, but apparently it's somebody special to him. We have a centurion, a man that has to watch over 100 men, but he's concerned about a servant. Think about what this centurion does. He's a commander in the army. He has a lot on his plate to do. This man, he has to devise plans to keep his men safe when they're fighting. He has to make sure they're well armed with the things that they need to fight in battles. He needs to devise plans to make sure they get the best plan together possible so they can be successful. He has to take care of his men, make sure their needs are met. He has to make sure when they do fight that they get the health care they need to heal and get well so they can fight again. He has to answer to his captain, the guy above him, to make sure everything, let him know what's going on with the men. How many men, do you still have 100 men? Are you down? Do you need some more? He's got a lot in his plate. But yet, this man is still concerned about a servant that's about to die. Concerned about a servant. You would think that a servant would be the last of his worries. You would think that a servant would be somebody that, he'd just replace. I mean, think about it. It's just a servant. They're got to be easy to replace. Got to be easy to replace. It's just a servant. But not to this man. He loves him. He loves his servant. What does that tell us about this centurion? What does that tell us about his character? What does that tell us about who he is? We get a pretty good picture about who this centurion is. This is a man that loves and cares for people no matter who they are. That's what it tells us. He loves for people. He cares for people. He's concerned about people that are hurting. No matter who it is, he's concerned with people no matter who they are, no matter what place in life they are, no matter how rich they are, how poor they are. This man loves everybody. First thing I want you to see is this. We need to care for people. Like this centurion cares for people, don't we? We need to care for people, but like the centurion cares for people. No matter who they are, no matter how terrible people may seem to us, no matter how sinful they may seem, it doesn't matter if we put them in a classification of being a lower class person than we are. Church, we still got to love them. We still got to love these people. We still got to care for them, don't we? We still have to love and care for each and every person in the world. The Bible never one time tells us not to. But too often, we as Christian people, we think we're somebody special just because we're a child of God. Oh, I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian. I'm better than that. No. No, you're not. You're a child of God, yes, but you still got to love them people. You still have to love them people. John chapter 15, I'm going to read a few verses here, says this. It says, "These things I command you, that you love one another." 1 Thessalonians 3:12, "And the Lord make you to increase and abound in love one toward another and toward all men, even as we do toward you." 1 Peter 3:8, "Finally, be ye all of one mind, having compassion one for another, love as brethren, be pitiful, be courteous." And that's only 3 verses in the New Testament. You can go all through the Bible and read all about these verses that we're told to love and to care for each other, help each other, be there for each other, have compassion, just love people is what God tells us to do, what Christ tells us to do. But we struggle with that sometimes, don't we? Not one of these verses tells us to love someone unless they're a servant, does it? Not one of these verses says love someone unless they're a sinner. Not one of these verses says love someone unless, they're lower down the totem pole than you are. You don't have to love them then. Them verses don't say that, do they? Them verses tell us to love each and every person out there. Show them some love. Show them some compassion. Show them that you care for them. They all need that. Each and every person needs that. The Bible never once tells us to look down on people. The Bible never once tells us once you get saved, you're above everybody else. It doesn't tell us that. The Bible tells us you need to love people. You need to care for people. You need to show people that you're concerned about them. Too often, though, we get all proud and look down at people and say, "Oh, I'd never do something like that. I mean, after all, I'm a child of God. I would never do what you're doing. I'm a child of God. I can never live like that. I mean, after all, I am saved. I am a child of God. I am a child of God." I mean, too often we see somebody all caught up in sin. And you see them, and we all do it. I mean, I do it too. You see them, you think, wow, look at them. I can never do nothing like that. I mean, I'm a child of God. Try to say that to that person and see what happens. I can never live like you. I'm saved. I'm a child of God. I can never do what you're doing right now. You know what you're going to do to that person? They're going to run as far away as they can from Christianity. If you don't show that person love, if you don't show that person you care for them, if you don't try to help that person or somebody that's in need, no matter what they're doing, no matter who they are, you can't walk up to people and say, I can never live like you because after all, I'm a Christian. I'll tell you what, you'll push them people away from Christianity. They'll run as far as they can from Christianity if you start pulling this, I'm a Christian. It's okay to say that, but say it with some care and with some love. Don't walk up there and all puffed up and act like you're somebody else. Church, we have to love people. We have to care for people. No matter their place in society, in today's society, we need to let people know that we love and we care for them, like the Bible tells us to do. I mean, look at the centurion, who he cares for. He cares for his servant. Somebody he could replace. He could walk down the street and replace it with almost anybody. Anybody would probably want to live in his home just to serve him, just so they could have a place to go, know they were taken care of. I mean, this centurion loves a servant of all people, and he's concerned and he cares for him. But too often, though, we classify people ourselves. Don't we classify people too often? We put people in different classes as who they, when we see them, as of who they are. I mean, here at the church, being here during the day, we see all kinds of people come in that door. Sometimes, there's some weeks that this church is a revolving door for people to come in and eat and stuff. Now, typically we don't hand out cash. We'll sit and talk to people and invite them to church and share the gospel with them a little bit. And we have some gift cards or something we'll give to them. But a lot of time we judge people before they even get to the door. We classify them. You know, who is this guy? I don't know about this one. This one looks kind of shady. I don't know about this one. But you know what? The centurion doesn't classify people. He loves everybody. He loves everybody. He loves all of them. The church, too often we classify people, and without even talking to them, we'll be walking down the street. We'll be at the store. We'll see people. We'll see people, and you'll look at that person, and you'll think, "Wow, I ain't talking to them. They look pretty rough." Somebody was here recently. It might have been, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Eric Faust or something like that. He said he was on a door-to-door visitation, and knocked on somebody's door, and nobody was there, so he went to the next door. He seen the guy walking down the street. He said he had seen this guy before several times. The guy had tattoos all over him, all up and down his thing, long hair. The guy looked rough as could be. And he did not want to witness to this guy. Didn't want to do it. He's like, I am not talking to that guy. That guy will roll me over. I ain't talking to him. And he said something came upon him, and all of a sudden he came across that guy again, and he just had an overwhelming burden to share the gospel with him, which he did, and the guy got saved. People just need something, don't they? People just need the gospel. People just need to know that we love and that we care for them, don't they? But too often we say, oh, but you don't understand. That person right there, they're involved in so much sin. I can't possibly love that person. Look what them. I'm not going to waste my time on that person. Look what they're doing. The Bible doesn't say that. The Bible says to love and care for them. Take the gospel to them. Try to help them. Oh, but you don't understand. That person right there, they're so unthoughtful. They're the most hateful, spiteful person I know. You still got to love them. And you still got to care for them. No matter what. Think about this. Can you imagine being under the centurion's watch? Can you imagine being around this man? Knowing how he cares for people? Let alone not even being in his family or being in his army and being one of his servants. But can you imagine just being around this guy and I don't know, just living down the street from him? I can tell you this, you're going to know something. You're going to know this guy cares for you. You're going to know that he cares for you, and he's not going to let nothing happen to you. I mean, if he's concerned and he's crying about a servant that's about to die, that's sick, if he's concerned about a servant, this tells me that this man cares for everybody. He cares for each and every person out there. Church, we got to love like the centurion loves people. We got to care for people like he cares for people. Lee Iacocca. If you don't know who Lee Iacocca was, yeah, I think he's in his 90s now. But he was a CEO for Ford for a long time. He gets credit for designing the Ford Mustang. That's one of his big calling cards. He got released from there and went to Chrysler Corporation for a long time. And he got credit for reviving Chrysler, bringing Chrysler back up to, being a reputable automobile again. And he's wrote several books. And he's just done a lot in his life. He's in his 90s now. But one day he was interviewing some people to write one of his books. And he asked Vince Lombardi, if you know who Vince Lombardi was, one of the great football coaches out there. He asked Vince Lombardi, he said, Vince, I got a question for you. He says, you've been a fantastic coach, one of the greatest. He says, what does it take to build a successful team? What's your secret? What do you do? Vince said, Lee, there's three things you got to do. He said, number one, he said, your team has to have discipline. He says, people need to be held accountable for what they do. There has to be discipline. People need to know there's an order, a way to do things, and we don't go outside of that. There has to be discipline. He said the second thing is this. He said, you have to know the fundamentals. You have to know the basics of coaching and how to coach guys, how to hire coaches and get them to coach guys. You have to know the basics, how to call plays. You've got to know some of the basic things to run and to coach a team. And Vince Lombardi said, but there's a third thing that's my secret that other teams don't have. He said, all the other teams don't have discipline. He said, the other teams don't have fundamentals. He said, this third thing is something that I would get teased for, but it's my secret. He said, you have to show these guys on this team and teach them how to love and to care for each other. He says, them guys have to know. He says, I go to my offensive lineman. He says, I tell them, I said, you need to learn how to protect your guys. He says, you need to know something, you guys. If you don't protect this running back, them guys on the other side of that line, they're trying to knock you down to get your guy. You need to care for that guy and protect him. See this guy, this quarterback? You need to protect them guys back there. You need to protect them from the defensive linemen, them linebackers, anybody who's going to blitz. You need to make sure that your quarterback, you can't let him get touched. This is your guy. You need to care for him. You need to love him, and don't let anybody touch him. Then he told the defense, you guys need to understand something. The offensive team, they're trying to get you guys to lose. You need to stop them from what they're doing, get the ball back to your team, and take care of your guys so you guys can win and be successful. And he said throughout his career, that was his secret potion. He said he had linemen, he had teams, he had all kinds of guys in his teams loving and caring for each other like no other team has ever before. He says, and as ironic as it is, he says, that's my secret. Getting these guys to love, care for each other, and have compassion for each other. He says, that's my secret potion. Church, that's how we've got to be. We've got to love and to care for each other. Here's the thing. How can we love and care for other people outside these doors, out there in the world, when too often, sometimes we can't even love and care for each other inside these doors? Church, we've got to love each other. We've got to care for each other. We have to take care of each other. We have to have some compassion, and the world has to know that Christians love each other and they love people also. That we're not some high and mighty people out there that are out there to judge others and to beat them down. We have to love each other. We have to care for each other, no matter what it is. People just need to know that we love them. Well, but you don't understand. That person's addicted to drugs. I'm telling you, they're addicted to drugs. That's a bad person out there. Still got to love them. Oh, but you understand, that person out there, I'm telling you, they're just one of the most evil people I've ever met in my life. I have a brother-in-law right now. My sister's been married to this guy for over 30 years. And he beats her on a regular basis. But you know what? I'm supposed to love this guy. I'm still supposed to love him and care for him and show him some compassion and be nice to him, as hard as that may be. When my oldest sister died back, 6 or 8 years ago, the night before the funeral, my sister called me. I was in Michigan. All my sisters lived up in Michigan. They still do. I'm the youngest of 4 kids. I have 3 older sisters. So my next oldest sister, she called me the night before the funeral, and she was crying. I said, Donna, what's going on? She goes, I can't come to the funeral. I said, why not? She said, Steve punched me in the face, and I got a black eye. I said, what do you mean Steve punched you in the face and you got a black eye? She said, he punched me. She said, I can't come there like this. Everybody will know what he does to me. So she didn't go to the funeral. About 2 months ago, my sister has tons of health problems. Tons of health. I always request prayer for her when we're doing prayer requests in youth group. She has all kinds of, she's got a kidney that needs to be removed. She's got poor circulation in her jugular veins and in one of her feet. They're talking about amputating one of her feet. They're talking about removing her kidney. She's got back problems now. She's got herniated disc. She's got sugar diabetes. She's got blood pressure problems. She's got tons of health problems. I don't know what happened just back a couple months ago. He got mad at her and held her up against the fridge and was trying to choke her to where she couldn't breathe. It scared her to death. So she called my other sister, which lives down the street, and she went and got her. The thing of it is, and I still have to love that guy and have compassion for him. I mean, I love my sister, yeah, but I'll tell you what, you talk about somebody that's hard to love, you go through something like that, and here's the deal, everybody tells me, well, go get her out of the house. We do. A bunch of times we went and got her out of the house. My sister went and picked her up that week and got her out of the house. You know where she was back 4 days later? Right back in the house. But here's the deal. I still have to love that guy and care for him and hope that someday he'll accept Christ as his Savior and get saved. He's been witnessed to more than anybody I've ever seen in my life and rejected it more than anybody I've ever seen in my life. But I still got to have love and compassion for this guy and hope that someday he can get his life straight. Matthew 5:44 tells us this. It says, "But I say unto you, love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you. And pray for them that despitefully use you and persecute you." Tell me that's not a tough verse to live by. That's a tough one right there. That's a hard verse to live by. Here's what's kind of neat about some of these things, though. When you see somebody turn their life around, somebody that you know their life was a mess, a disaster. I mean, one of the people you look at, you say they're a lost case. They've been witnessed to. People have tried to help them. They've been through rehabs. They've been through all kinds of programs. They've been through all kinds of things to try to get their life straightened out. They are a lost case. Then all of a sudden, someday you hear that they got their life back together and they're straightened out. They got saved. They're into church, and they're living right. You know what's cool? So you'll hear a lot of them people say. A lot of them people like that. You'll hear them say that they had that one person in their life that never gave up on them. That one person in their life that loved and cared for them, still had compassion for them, still would check on them, make sure they're okay. They had that one person, even though everybody else gave up on them, they still had that one person that loved and cared for them. Church, we all have to be that one person. We all have to love like that. We all have to have compassion like that. Here's the deal. Either they're lost or they're so backslidden, Satan has such a grip on them that they're having a hard time getting out of it. That's the reason to love them even more. To help them to get out of a situation like that. Help them to accept Christ. Be the one. Be that one person who does things like that. But too many of us that are Christians, and I'm guilty of it, we look down on people like that and don't want nothing to do with them. Want nothing to do with them. I remember several years ago, we had a guy that went here. And his brother was addicted to some kind of drugs. And he was up here in a hotel. There's a hotel that you don't want to, put it this way, you don't want to rent a room there. You don't want to go there and spend a few nights. Do not go. It's up here in Hamilton. And he asked me to go there with him one night after church. He said, will you go with me? I said, for what? He said, I need you to go with me and get my brother. I was like, where's your brother at? He's like, he's down here at a hotel. He called me. He's all whacked out on some drugs. And he wants to get out of there because something's going on. He said, I'm just telling you, he said, and I ain't going there by myself. He said, because I'm telling you, this is a bad place to go to. And believe me, that was a bad place to go to. And this guy, he loves his brother, he cares for his brother, and he's always trying to help his brother. He said, I just tried to help my brother so much, I just wished he'd get his life straightened out. Church, we got to be the one to help people like that. Sometimes you got to be the one to help people and love them and care for them. We had a guy here just recently, I don't know if you shared this barrier or not, we had a guy here just this past week, got baptized at this church. I don't know what, 4 or 5 months ago, if that long. Name was Chris Jacob. They found early 20s, 22, 23, something like that. I would guess, maybe 24. They found him a week or so ago, overdosed, dead in his bed on drugs. Dead on drugs. Church, people like that need help. Yes, we tried to help this guy and tried to steer him in the right direction, but sin has such a grasp on this guy, he just kept on falling back into it. But church, we got to love people like that. We got to care for people like that and show them that we love and care for them. We can't always look down on people just because they're caught up in something that we don't want to be involved in. We still have to care for them. Second thing I want you to see is this. Sometimes you got to be the one to go help. Sometimes you got to be the helper. Look in Luke chapter 7, verse 3. And you might want to put your thumb in Matthew also. Luke chapter 7, verse 3, then we're going to read a few verses here, then we're going to skip back to Matthew. Luke chapter 7, verse 3, look what the centurion does. It says, and when he had heard of Jesus, that's talking about the centurion there, when the centurion heard of Jesus, he sent unto him the elders of the Jews, beseeching him that he would come and heal his servant. Now skip down to verse 6, and after this verse, we're going to go to Matthew chapter 8. It says, Luke chapter 7, verse 6 says, then Jesus went with them, and when he was now not far from the house, the centurion sent friends to him, saying unto him, Lord, trouble not thyself, for I am not worthy that thou shouldest enter under my roof. Now go back to Matthew chapter 8. So here we have this centurion. First he sent the elder of the Jews, then he sends friends. Now in Matthew chapter 8, verse 5, look what it says here. It says, and when Jesus was entered into Capernaum, there came unto him a centurion beseeching him, and saying, Lord, my servant lieth at home sick of the palsy, grievously tormented. And Jesus saith unto him, he said, I will come and heal him. See what happened there? The centurion, he sent the elder of the Jews, then he sent his friends. And then when Jesus gets close enough to his house to where he can see him, he runs out the door. He says, please, Jesus, you've got to come down. You've got to get to my house, Jesus. He says, my servant is laying in bed with a palsy. He's in pain. He's about to die. He's sick as can be, Jesus. I need you to come and heal him. And what did Jesus say? He said, I'll come and heal him. I'll come and heal him. Church, when is the last time you rushed out like this to help somebody? Sometimes you got to be the one to go. Sometimes you got to be the one to go out and help people. Somebody that's struggling with something. But here's the problem. A lot of us, I don't know necessarily if it's a problem, but it's something that a lot of us do. Not that it's wrong. A lot of us are really good at sending somebody else to go help somebody. A lot of us are really good at sending somebody else to go out and help others. But here's the thing. If it's a burden on your heart, who do you think is supposed to go? If God burdened you with something to help somebody, to help a family, help an individual, help somebody in your family or whoever it might be, if it's a burden of yours, who do you think is supposed to go? I think it's you. I think you're the one that's supposed to go. Think about this. Pastors can't get to everybody. Deacons can't get to everybody. Sunday school teachers can't get to everybody. Youth pastors cannot get to everybody. Sometimes you got to be willing to say, I'm just going to go do it myself. I'm going to see what I can do to help this person. Sometimes you have to be the one to go out and help people. If you go back and look in Luke and Matthew, and you read in these verses, when the centurion sent the elder of the Jews, when he sent his friends, not one time when they went to Jesus did Jesus ever say, yeah, I'll come and heal him. Jesus only said that when finally the centurion went to him and said, Jesus, I need you to come heal my servant. He's sick with the palsy, he's about to die. And immediately Jesus said, I've been waiting for you to heal this person and pray for him. And I'm going to come and heal him now. I've been waiting for you to be the one to come to me and say, you need this person healed. I don't need to talk to your elder of the Jews. I don't need to talk to your friends. I was waiting for you to come and talk to me. Sometimes you got to be the one. Sometimes you got to be the one to go. But church, sometimes, too often, we look down on people like this and want nothing to do with them. Somebody that needs help, somebody that's down and out on their luck, somebody that's down on health problems, somebody that's down, lost in sin, no matter who it is. You got to show that you love them, you got to care for them, and sometimes you've got to be the one to go help them. But too often we all complain, and when somebody gets filled with disgusting, nasty, filthy, stuck in the sin, we all complain and say, I want nothing to do with that. But the Bible tells us you need to have compassion for them. The Bible says to be courteous to them. The Bible says you need to love them. The Bible says you need to care for them. That's what the Bible says. But what are we doing to help people? A pastor once said this, and it's nice to get on the pat of the back. When the pastor brings a good message, he likes the pat on the back. He likes to hear that he brought a good message. There's a pastor that said one time, he said his goal is this. At the end of all his sermons, his goal is not for people to come by and say, good message, pastor, good sermon, enjoyed it. His desire is this, for people to walk by him and say, Pastor, you got me today. I'm going to go do something. That's what this pastor said his desire was. One time I was reading about. He said, I want my people, when I get and I preach to them, to just go. I don't need the pat on the back. He says, I want my people to just go and go do something. Church, sometimes we got to be the one to just go and go do something. If you want the world to change, if you want society to change, if you want America to change, what are you doing about it? If you want your family to change, if you have, there's issues in your family, what are you doing about it? If there's issues with some of your friends, what are you doing about it? If there's issues in your marriage, what are you doing to change it, if anything? Hopefully you're doing a whole lot to work on those things. But we can't just sit back and complain all the time, wondering and hoping that someday something comes along and changes people. Sometimes you got to be the one to go, and sometimes you got to be the one to change it. But too often we sit back and just complain about it. When you know good and well as I do, you got to do something. You got to do something about it. We got to have love and care like the centurion does. We got to be like him and have compassion for other people. Let me ask you this: if somebody's healing, if somebody's help, if somebody getting back to a place where they need to be, if somebody needs to accept Christ, if somebody, I don't know, whatever needs to happen in their life is dependent on what you do, is it going to happen? If somebody is waiting for help and their help is dependent on you, and you know that person needs help, but you're sitting back and do nothing, guess what? Help ain't going to get there. If their help is dependent on you, is the help going to get there? Church, we got to love and we got to care for people, especially in a season like coming up, Thanksgiving and Christmas. This is a time where people are in need. This is a time where people the cold weather's coming up, and there's a lot of people out there who need help. There's people in churches that necessarily aren't even homeless or are hungry. They might just be struggling with something spiritually, something emotionally, something with their health that we need to have love and care and show compassion for. Here's the deal. Here's one thing I know this. We're all still here. Christ didn't come back yet, and we all lived another day. But here's what I know. God is still on the throne, and He's still changing lives. God is still on the throne, and He's still answering prayers. God is still on the throne, and He's still out there to change people or families or cities or countries. He's still out there to change as much as He can, but it takes people like us to do something about it. But what are we doing? What are we doing to change those things? Are we doing anything at all? I know this is kind of excites me. God's still saving people. We had, when we went to the youth overnighter last Friday night, a little over a week ago, there were several kids there that got saved. You want to hear the good part about that? And a few of them were ours. A few of them were ours. I haven't had a chance to talk to any of them yet. I talked to a couple of them, but it's kind of exciting knowing that we took some youth there and they accepted Christ their Savior. That's pretty neat. It takes, sometimes you got to be the one to just go and to help these people and do things. But we got to love like a centurion. We got to care like a centurion. I just want to share a quick story with you, and we'll close with this. But Jim Cymbala, he pastors a church in New York City. It's one of the worst neighborhoods, they say, in New York City. And it's a pretty big church. He had a Sunday where he had preached a message in the morning, preached a message in the evening, had a long Sunday, and he was tired. Church was winding up on Sunday night. There were people at the altar praying, and he said, I was wore out, I was tired. He said, I was ready for the day to be done. I was ready to go home. I was ready to go home. I was done. He said, so he went down to the edge of the stage, sat down at the top step. He said, I sat down there just to get off my feet for a few minutes while altar counseling or counseling with a lot of people. He said, I sat there. He said, I looked up. He said, there was a guy standing up the aisle, filthy as can be. He said, there's a guy standing up the aisle and made eye contact with me. He said, this happens a lot around here. He says, we have people that are homeless or people that are hungry, people that need something coming in here all the time. He said, so it's typical for this to happen. He said, I made eye contact with this guy, and he looked at me, and he said, so I just motioned him to come on. He said, the guy got about 5 feet away from him. He said, I could smell him. He said, this guy smelled just absolutely terrible. He said, finally he got up to me where I could talk to him. He said, in order just to talk to this guy, he said, I have to talk to him, then turn my head and take a breath. Say a couple of words and take a breath. So he asked this guy, he's like, can I help you? And the guy said, I just need some help. And so Jim Cymbala, he said, I never do this. He said, I took my wallet out. He says, I was going to hand him a few dollars just to go away. He said, I was done. I was ready to go home. He said, I just wanted this guy to give him some cash and to get out of my church because he stunk. He said, that guy held his hand up. He said, Pastor, he said, I don't want your money. He said, you don't? He said, no. He said, Pastor, he said, I'm 32 years old, and I've been homeless living on the streets of New York City for 6 years. He says, yes, I'm hungry, and yes, I'm cold, and yes, I need a bath, and yes, I need some clean clothes. He said, Pastor Zimmerly said, I know all that stuff, but you know what I want? He says, I've been sneaking in the back of your church for a few years now, listening to your sermons, and typically I'll slide right back out the door because I can come in here, and I can sit down, and I can get warm for a little bit. He said, but today, he says, I don't want your money. I don't even want to get warm. He said, today, Pastor Jim, only thing I want is I need Jesus. Pastor Jimble witnessed to that guy, and Pastor Jimble, he said, I hugged that guy as bad as he smelt, but he said, you know what? When I was hugging him and leading him to Christ, he said it was the best smell I ever smelled in my life. He said, now today, he said, that guy, he got saved. He said, we give him a job in the church to clean up the church and do some janitorial work and to fix things. He said he worked his way and got himself a place to stay. He said he spent several Thanksgivings and Christmases at my house. He turned into be just a fantastic guy. He said, then one day I asked this guy to get up and share his testimony. He says, I want you to get up and share your testimony. He said, because you've come such a long way. I want you to tell people where you came from, where you're at now. He said that guy got up to share his testimony and shared it so good. Pastor Jim looked at the guy and could tell that someday he's going to be preaching. And sure enough, he did. He surrendered to the ministry and he's preaching in New Jersey today. Pastor Jim didn't want to help that guy, but he did anyway. Sometimes he says, you know what? Sometimes you just got to be the one just to show him some love, show him some compassion, and to help him. Church, we got to be like that. We got to be like that centurion. We got to be the one to help people. Sometimes it's a hard place to help people because you don't know what they need. And as we prepare for a song of invitation, it's a struggle for all of us to love people the way we need to. Because there's a lot of evil in the world. A lot of times you don't know what people's intentions are. But the Bible says, don't worry about that. The Bible says, you know what? You need to show people that you love them. You need to show people that you care for them. You need to be courteous to people because people need Christ. People need help. And too often, we have a hard time loving other people because sometimes we don't even love some of the people in our own church. Church, we got to love people. We got to love each other, and we got to love people. The world has to know that we care about them like nobody else does. So today, if you want to stand, we're going to be on page 598. The altar is going to be open. The pastor is going to be down front. So if you have anything to pray about, the altar is going to be open. Just come forward and pray. And just learn that we all just need to learn how to love people. All right?